Hello and good evening, everyone. This is Fatima Kalkatawala, and I shall be moderating today's session. On behalf of the Applied Nutrition and Dietetics Department of Sister Nivedita University, I welcome you all to today's webinar on the prospects and career opportunities in the field of nutrition and dietetics. As we all know, nutrition is a very integral part of every individual's life, and a balanced diet is the key to good health. Opting a career in this field opens up vast avenues ranging from hotels to hospitals. Today we have with us an eminent speaker, Professor Devnath Chaudhary, who is a stalwart in this field. He is a retired professor and was the head of the Department of Biochemistry and Nutrition in the All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health in Kolkata. His current research interests are metabolic syndrome among different populations, geriatric nutrition, and pediatric nutrition. He is the president of Society for Nutrition and Dietetics and a recipient of Rastogi Felicitation Award of International College of Nutrition. As our Vice Chancellor Sir said, I would request all the participants to mute their microphones and turn off their videos. You are requested to put forward all your questions to the speaker in the chat box. Those of viewing the live streaming, please feel free to mail your questions to the email address provided in the registration confirmation mail. I would now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor Dhrubakirti Chattopadhyay, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Fatema. Devnath, could you hear? Devnath,
I
could
am
you
here.
hear?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
No,
of course I can hear.
there is no problem. Audio problem and other things are not there, no? All right, yeah.
Not yet.
Okay. So, thank you, Professor Chaudhary, a very good friend of mine and working in the field of biochemistry, followed by in the area of nutrition for a very, very long period of time with its vast experience. We are really fortunate that when Sister Nivedita University decided to start its applied nutrition and dietetics department this year, we approached him for helping us to prepare the syllabus. And it is under the stewardship and the guidance of Professor Devnath Chaudhary and Dr. Paramita Dattagupta from Chittaranjan National Cancer Institute, we could frame our syllabus. And we are really thankful to you, Professor Chaudhary, for helping us in this regard. The second thing I just want to mention that I'm really very happy that Professor Oshim Dr. Roy from University of Oslo, who is also a very, very renowned nutritionist, also agreed to be with us in this particular program. And he is also going to deliver the webinar in the middle of the month of July, as well as Dr. Paramita Dattagupta. But we are starting with Professor Chaudhary with a specific reason, because he is one of the pioneers who can tell us why the applied nutrition, the term applied we have joined with nutrition, why applied nutrition and dietetics is very, very important in this 21st century. And particularly if we consider in this post-COVID situation. In this regard, I just want to mention that that education should always lead and not follow. It should equip us for the future and not keep us chained to the past. It must be the domain of the greatest creativity and not be the slave of habits. And based on that, this new disciplines like biochemistry, like chemistry, microbiology, and many other areas, it came up and developing itself. But nutrition itself developed long time back, but now along with all these disciplines, it actually got a completely different type of interest amongst everybody. There are a lot of scope and a lot of things for doing research. And right now, if you look at it in this post-COVID-19 situation, we have to think about if education has to help usher for us tomorrow, it cannot be afraid. And in that particular thing, keeping in our mind, the change is introduction of this new department with the help of Department of Biochemistry, Department of Microbiology, we have Department of Nursing, we have Department of Pharmacy, and all these departments are going to help us in doing this. And I must thank the aid of the department, Rajat Pal, and particularly the two young Turks, Shomshubra Thakur Chakraborty and Fatima Calcutta Wala, who are actually going to give this particular department a shape also. We are also very happy. Milon is with us. Atri, I don't find Atri, but if Atri is also here, I should like to thank her also. And I really don't want to spend any more time because we want to hear from horse's mouth that what is the role of applied nutrition and dietetics in this new world. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Will I start? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Fatima. Fatima.
Yes, sir. Please, you may start.
Okay. So, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Your voice is clear.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Your voice is clear.
Clear. Okay. So, very good evening to everybody who have joined in this webinar on the prospects and career opportunities in nutrition and dietetics. And I'm thankful to Sister Nivedita University, not only for inviting me for this lecture, but also starting a course in applied nutrition and dietetics, BSc. And I have gone through the syllabus. I worked a little bit, and I found this extremely modern syllabus. May not be comparable to many other BSc syllabus in the state or in the country. I hope this will emerge as one of the best courses in the nutrition and dietetics arena. Now, as I understand that there may be many undergraduate and postgraduate students who are listening to it, I just like to clear a confusion as much as possible regarding two terms, nutrition and dietetics. Applied nutrition term may come later on. But what is actually nutrition? There is a poor understanding about the role of dietitians or nutritionists among not only laymen, among some of the educated persons of different field. But we try to understand what nutrition is. Now, what is the definition of nutrition? I've gone through so many definitions of nutrition in the last 4 decades, but I still like the best definition, which was written in a book. I'm sure that Professor Chattopadhyay has also gone through that book in his student days. It was of Pike and Brown, Nutrition and Integrated Approach. There, it is clearly written that nutrition is the science that interprets the relationship of food to the functioning of living organisms. So it is a science, not really a social science or something as art. No, it's a science, because nutrition is actually evolved from chemistry and physiology. And when the beginning of scientific nutrition started, we can say, or people say, it is Lavoisier, Antoine Lavoisier, maybe 250 years or something like that ago, when he did some experiments, historical experiments on respiratory exchange and calorimetry. Afterwards, slowly, the different nutrients were discovered, purified, excreted in different times. And the rolling started. In the first half of 20th century, macronutrients and micronutrients were in the focus. Minerals, vitamins started coming out. Particularly in the 1930s and 1940s, a lot of vitamins have been isolated, excreted, extracted. In the 1960s, a very important component has been recognized as having a health benefit, dietary fiber. Think of 1970s and 80s, phytonutrients, different type of phytonutrients, and also slowly the nutraceuticals were coming. Then from 1990 onwards, slowly maybe nutrigenetics, and particularly in this century, from 2001 onwards, etc., nutrigenomics has reached, and nutritional science is basically moved into a new era. But the fact is that nutrition as a separate discipline has been recognized in 1926 when a professor of nutrition post was created in the University of Columbia. So this is the overview how nutrition has grown from calorimetry to nutrigenomics. So we need to understand that it is a science, and that science has developed in the last maybe 250 years and still developing a vibrant science. Nutrition is. The other component is dietetics. There is a very common mixing of nutrition with the dietetics. Okay, what I feel I will tell later on, but let me quote the definition from the Encyclopedia of Food Science and Nutrition, where it is said that dietetics is the application of the science. Once again, science. It is the application of the science of nutrition to the human being in health and disease. So basically, to me, dietetics is a specialized area of nutrition. It takes the help of nutritional science, and by that, it applies. So to some extent, and definitely, dietetics is also applied science and rather applied nutrition. So what is very interesting that if I say that nutrition is the umbrella term and dietetics is one of the specialized area, then what is expected that nutrition should emerge first and then dietetics. But the fact is that dietetics, I mean the importance of food in relation to health, was known at the time of Homer, Plato, and Hippocrates. And even some of them have written the importance of some food products, so food commodities like cereals, vegetables, for the well-being of health, and what type of food should be restricted. What we nowadays say, they have said all these things so many years ago, maybe 400 and more than that. Then what is very interesting, who is the first dietitian? Some of you will be amazed to know that our great Florence Nightingale, who is the pioneer of modern nursing system, was actually recognized as the first dietitian, but not officially. He was involved in a war known as Crimean War between 1853 to 1856. And she realized the importance of diet for the injured or sick soldiers. But the first use of the title dietitian was recorded in 1899 in the USA, and dietetics first formalized in USA in 1917 when American Dietetic Association was established. So in this way, nutrition and dietetics has developed, and they have immense prospect in every aspect. Nutrition is definitely a science, and if it is a science, so it should be applied, because nutrition ultimately is an applied science. Whether you developed a nutraceutical, if you are thinking of nutrigenetics, nutrigenomics, etc., all these are having application. So briefly, I said about the prospect. I will move into the opportunities now, career opportunities, and let me see what kind of questions come. And during my comments on the question, answering the questions, some of these issues will come up once again, I hope. Now, so for the career opportunities, there are various opportunities, in fact. There are only few subjects, maybe few courses, which are having so diverse opportunities. Being a teacher, I would like to mention teaching as a career. Nowadays, nutrition is being taught in the school, in the college, and in the university. Government, government aided, private, whatever it may be. Research. I feel there is a huge scope for nutritional research. I was basically a student of biochemistry, did a PhD in biochemistry, learned a little bit of nutrition during MSc studies, and then again some more during my professional career. What I understand now, that nutritional research is actually neglected in many ways, at least in our country. Particularly in the public health area, what we say public health nutrition, lot of scopes are there. With the development of the modern science, molecular biology, etc., there's ample scope for the research of in the field of nutrigenomics, development of food products, nutraceuticals, etc. A small thing I forgot to mention when I was saying about the development of nutrition is the realization of the importance of probiotics. Though it was first came in 1907, but the importance probably was realized in the late 20th century. And now probiotic research has become a very important area. I can remember attending a conference in Delhi, and a 2.5-day conference was entirely on lactobacillus. Only on one genus, the whole conference was organized, and that was a Asian conference. So there is ample scope in research, and those who are studying nutrition or dietetics also can take part if they develop their skill, their knowledge properly according to the syllabus and training. Now, third very important profession is dietitian. Well, as I said that dietetics started in the United States long time back, but dietetics started in India in 1950 when a dietetics course was established, started in All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health. That was the first dietetics course in India. And the importance of dietitian is extremely felt everywhere nowadays. There are certain problems in the recruitment, etc. I know. But what is important that when I joined in All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health, the number of dietitians in the private hospitals were very limited. But now, even small nursing home hospitals are having dietitians. Now, when we think of dietitian, they can have different type of jobs. I'm using certain terminology directly from the employment news published from an article published in 2016. Normally, we say dietitian or clinical nutritionist, etc., when they particularly work in the hospital or particularly work in the area of disease. But they use a term clinical dietitian. Whatever may be the name of the profession, clinical nutritionist or clinical dietitian, these people basically work in the hospitals and also in the outpatient department, OPD. Then there is a community dietitian. Mainly, they work with government organizations, NGOs, who are basically looking after the community. Rural Health Mission India has appointed a lot of nutritionists, and they are posted in different parts of the country, particularly in the remote areas. They are posted for nutritional rehabilitation center with children. So basically, they are working in the community, though to some extent, they are working like a clinical dietitian. Then there is ample scope in the health and fitness clubs. Nowadays, practically all the fitness club appoint dietitian or a nutritionist for their customers. Daycare centers, with the advancement of age and life expectancy, geriatric problem has developed in the country. We are having a lot of daycare centers for the geriatric population. So in the daycare center, dietitian can work. The third one is the management dietetics. What they are saying is the management dietetics. Some hotels, top class hotels, even in India, appoint dietitian to train their staffs, to formulate the diet for their customers, etc. They may be appointed in the restaurants. I'm not very sure whether in India, in any restaurant, dietitians are being appointed, but maybe in other countries they are doing that. Many top class schools are having dietitians where the students are getting the meal in the school itself. Many of the children may be having certain ailments. And finally, the consultant dietitians who can practice of herself or himself. And in India, I will touch upon that maybe later on if I get time. India, there is no regulation still that who can practice as a dietitian, as a consultant dietitian, I should say. But there is a possibility that a registration will start in West Bengal. The process is ongoing. And at that time, only registered dietitians will be able to practice as a dietitian or work as a dietitian in a hospital or in other places. Next comes number 4, sports nutritionists, an extremely emerging area in our country as well. I know that Sports Authority of India appointed many nutritionists for their athletes. They are also having certain kind of research, and they appoint research assistant for that also. Definitely clubs, good clubs are always having dietitians. Many individual athletes or sports person are having their personal dietitian. So there is ample scope in sports nutrition, and any graduate or postgraduate in sports nutrition is always having a mileage to work in a fitness center because of their this kind of experience. Number 5, nutritionist or dietitian can work in the mass media also, because they can be an expert like a science journalism. They can specialize in nutrition journalism, and they can write articles, they can take interview and other things, and that will be more acceptable maybe, because we often see that a lot of wrong informations are coming in the newspapers and other media. And finally, I don't know I am missing something else or not. Finally, according to me, is marketing. A lot of companies are selling nutrition supplements, nutraceutical products, other products also, other food products. So they often appoint dietitians or nutritionists as a marketing personnel. They help in the marketing process. So this is all about prospects and career opportunities and on nutrition and dietetics. And what I feel always that as this is not a technical lecture, so if some questions come, so I will try to answer those according to my ability, and maybe I'll be able to elaborate certain points which I have already touched upon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, we have received a couple of questions in the email. So, sir, first we would like to take up those questions. So the first question is from Varsha Lal, who is a BSc Honours student in Food and Nutrition from Calcutta University. And she has asked that...
Yeah, please,
yeah.
Fatima.
Yes, sir. So she has asked, is there a difference between studying MSc in Food and Nutrition and MSc in Applied Nutrition and Dietetics? And also, will I face any problem in future, for example, while giving any national level competitive exams like NET, if I study MSc in Applied Nutrition and Dietetics? So this is her question.
I faced this question many times because the thing is that nutrition courses are having different names. There is no standardized system in the nomenclature. The fact is that food and nutrition, MSc in food and nutrition, or MSc in applied nutrition, what National Institute of Nutrition is having, or All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health, other institutes under West Bengal University of Health Sciences also having that, and then uh, dietetics and food service management, Vidyasagar University is having. So different names are there. There is absolutely no problem in pursuing PhD. There is no problem in appearing in the NET examination, UGC, or ICMR, JRF, whatever it may be, ICAR, and they are equally eligible for getting a job in the school, college, or university. And a lot of people have done that. They got the job. They've done the PhD. So absolutely no problem, because anything which is equivalent to food and nutrition will be considered as fine.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Shawnee Das, who is a PhD scholar in West Bengal State University. And so she's asking, what is the scope of food and nutrition students in food processing units?
Okay, the thing is that the syllabus varies from university to university. Even in a particular university, when the colleges are having MSc courses, to some extent even the syllabus varies. And in all kinds of syllabus of nutrition, food science, and maybe to some extent food processing or technology is there. But what is important, what is the focus of the syllabus? What I understand, that there is one course by IIEST, and that is food processing and nutrition science. Now, clearly from the name itself, it is clear that their focus is in food processing. So naturally, their syllabus is having a lot of food processing components and other things. And some other MSc courses may be having a lot of dietetics and then public health, nutrition, etc. So there is no way that one can stop you to work in a food industry or whatever it may be, food processing unit. If you do a food and nutrition MSc or MSc in applied nutrition, but definitely you have to develop the knowledge and skill. So unless that is there in the syllabus, in the theory and practical, you won't be able to develop that, and naturally, ultimately, we are not going to get the job. This is the thing.
So Boishali, she wants to know if there is any difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian.
Already I explained, nutritionist and dietitian. I don't know whether she heard it, joined at that time, but briefly what I can say that nutrition can be an umbrella term, and dietetics is the specialized area of nutrition. Nutrition basically relates food with health, and dietetics is the application of nutritional knowledge for formulating diet and other things.
Thank you, sir. So then the next question is from Tirtha Mukherjee, who is an MSc student in KPC Medical College and Hospital. The question is, which type of job opportunities I can get after completing my MSc, and am I able to practice in any hospital as a trainee dietitian? what will be the eligibility to join in the college as a faculty in nutrition?
Basically, when I was discussing the career opportunities, I think the question has been answered. But what I can say that nowadays, if you like to join in a college after doing MSc, ideally you should do a PhD. Otherwise, it is very difficult to compete with others because nowadays a lot of students are doing PhD and they will have definitely a mileage because they will publish many papers. They will have an additional degree. So all these things. What other point of this question? Can you repeat the question once again, Fatima?
Yes. So then he's asked, what will be the eligibility to join in the college as a faculty in nutrition?
That I said already. Anything
Ah,
else?
so that's all.
Okay.
So then we have some more questions over here from Sushma Das. When can we start our own clinic or start self-practicing? And so just need to know that IAP and courses are good or not.
Uh, uh, it depends on what is your background. I don't know what you are doing. So you can start a clinic practically any time because the thing is that there is no regulation that when a dietitian can start a clinic. Suppose if you done a BSc in food and nutrition, and there is a course clinical nutrition and dietetics. Now it is only Gokhale College runs that course. Even after doing the BSc, you can start a clinic. But ideally, for credibility, it is expected that you will do a MSc or a postgraduate diploma in dietetics. Then ideally you should do a internship 6 months in a good hospital, multi-facility hospital, develop your skill, expertise, and then if you start a clinic, then it is fine. As I said, that there is no registration system till now from the government point of view, but Indian Dietetic Association is giving a RD, registered registration for the dietitians, and one can apply for that. There are certain uh, uh, rules who can apply, and ultimately if you qualify that, so you will become a RD by Indian Dietetic Association, and that will be an extra qualification and your credibility so that you can run a clinic. Just opening a clinic will not do. Ultimately, you have to run the clinic. So you have to convince your customer that you can make a proper diet and effectively.
Sushma has done, she's saying her BSc and MSc both in nutrition.
Both in?
So like Sushma, whose question you just addressed, so she has done her BSc and MSc both in nutrition.
Both in nutrition.
Nutrition, yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. She can always start a clinic, but it is ideally if she do a internship and develop expertise a little bit, that will always be helpful.
So then there is one question from Abdul Ajim. He wants to know, are there any career opportunities on space nutrition research, and how can I get that?
Space nutrition.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very, very interesting area. I remember I used to teach briefly in our previous institutes this high altitude nutrition. This has emerged like any, I mean, hugely, because earlier, from the in the Apollo time, they used to get food from tubes like a toothpaste, etc. And now in the space, they can consume normal food, packed food, of course, dedicated to a person. Even in the trays, foods are being kept, and they consume just like a normal person. I don't know whether in India there is any specialized space nutrition training center. Not even anywhere in the world. I have no idea, because normally a nutritionist and dietitians usually being trained to work as a space nutritionist. I mean, they are not going in the spacecraft. They are formulating the diet for the persons, the astronauts, according to their requirement.
Yes. So then
Yes, Fatima.
Subhangi Mukherjee, she has the next question. Is there any scope in government-aided hospitals or medical colleges to join as a junior or senior dietitian? Or is there any exam or interview that we need to clear?
Unfortunately, uh, despite a lot of posts in government hospitals, I mean medical colleges, not all hospitals. In all the medical colleges, dietitians post is there, more than one. But at present, if I'm not wrong, not a single dietitian is there in any of these medical colleges. So what I understand, these medical colleges are running without any dietitian. When private hospitals are having many dietitians, sometimes 6, 7 dietitians even, government hospitals are not having. So we can hope that someday uh, recruitment will be done, and when recruitment will be done, uh, as all the posts are vacant, so many dietitians may be appointed, but we have to wait for that. Rishma, Fatima?
So Momita Banik, she's asking, sir, can you explain the private practice in dietitian?
Already I said on that, that one can practice as a dietitian, but before that, because it is a one-man show, as she's a girl, so one woman show. So you are basically directly in contact with the patient, and patient needs the result. So what is important, that you should develop your knowledge, skill, and expertise in prescribing diet, in counseling the patient, and then you will be able to run a chamber. But of course, you can run a chamber. You can do a practice. Fatima?
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from one of our faculty members of the Microbiology and Biotechnology Department, Dr. Atreyi Ghosh. So she's asking, the first recorded scripture called Supa Shastra was written in 1500 AD in India, which was considered to be the first written document about personal nutrition and medicine according to Ayurveda. Does modern nutrition science acknowledge the contribution of ancient scriptures like this?
Maybe someone, but in our academics, there is no mention of all these things. So at least in the academic area, academic arena, undergraduate and postgraduate, as far as my knowledge goes, it is never been recognized.
Thank you, sir.
But there can be articles and other research papers, everything is there. But whenever we read about Socrates, we read about Plato and Lavoisier and all these things. No Indian reference. Even in the books written by Indians.
Yes, sir. So again, more or less, you have addressed this question. There's a question from Dolan Sarkar Shah, who wants to know how can one get a job in food industries after doing BSc and MSc in food and nutrition?
One can get a job after doing a BSc or MSc food and nutrition. There are people who worked or working in the food industry. Now, in the food industry, in the technology side, you are not going to get the job because basically they will prefer food technologist. But a nutritionist can work in the quality control lab, no doubt of it. And as I already said, that if you study in a particular institute where there is a lot of food processing things or food technology, etc. So there is every possibility that you can get a job in the food industry. But you have to compete with the food technologists to some extent.
So then
Fatima?
again, we have a very interesting question which we received on mail. So it states, in the COVID situation, numerous studies are coming about the requirement of balanced diet to enrich proper health and immunity. Demand of nutritionists and dietitians are increasing day by day. So what do you think in this COVID and post-COVID situation, how will the career opportunities change for students who are studying in this field?
Excuse me, before I answer a difficult question. A lot of webinars have been organized on this, COVID-19, nutrition, immunity, all this. A lot of people have said a lot of things, different food, different nutrient, etc. The thing is that we never say that when there is no pandemic, a person will consume ill-balanced diet. Balanced diet is recommended anytime, whether there is any infection or not. Now, what is balanced diet? Balanced diet is basically a diet which provides all the nutrients as per requirement with some extra for emergency. This is the definition of balanced diet. Now, COVID-19 pandemic situation is an extraordinary situation and continuing for many months, and God knows how long it will continue. Thus, some special considerations are definitely there. If I start with the boredom, I also become bored sometimes, try to do a lot of things. I'm grateful to SNU that at least for 1 hour and 1.5 hours, my boredom is being relieved to some extent. And boredom is associated with greater energy intake. So people start consuming more of carbohydrate-rich food maybe, leading to overweight, obesity as a possibility. So there is an immense scope for the dietitian to tackle the situation. What should be the proper food intake at that time? The second thing is stress. Often you will feel that something is happening to your throat, and maybe you are having a fever, and you have already contaminated, infected by some person. So some kind of a stress. And when there is a stress, some people crave for so-called comfort food, sugary food, chocolates, etc. Again, there is a chance of increase of body weight. The people who are suffering from diabetes, if they cannot control, there is a possibility of increase of blood glucose. Again, there should be a role of dietitian to manage the situation. very important issue is sleep disorder. To some extent, that may be due to stress, maybe due to sedentary lifestyle, boredom, anxiety, whatever it may be. And when there is a sleep disorder, what you need, some food which can provide you serotonin or melatonin or at least a good amount of tryptophan from where these compounds can be synthesized. So some specific food items can be recommended. And what WHO has recommended, what I'm saying, it is directly from the recommendation of the WHO, everything. Certain foods are impractical for us, particularly the dinner. This kind of food you should take in the dinner, ideally. And if I say that you take almonds in the dinner, a bit impractical, or maybe oats in the dinner, a bit impractical. But one can take, if possible, fruits like bananas or maybe cherries. But the best thing is, to me, milk and milk product. One of the richest source of tryptophan, and from where a good amount of serotonin can be produced, and that can elevate the mood. And melatonin-rich foods, if you consume, that also help. So dietitians are having a very important role in advising all these things. Importance of antioxidants are very much realized. People are convinced that certain antioxidant, I'm focusing on the nutritional antioxidants, non-nutritional antioxidants are also there, like lycopene, etc., beta carotene. But if you beta carotene, vitamin A, whatever it may be, and then vitamin C and vitamin vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E. These three vitamins are extremely important for boosting your immunity. It increases the number of T subcells. It enhances the lymphocyte response, potentiate the natural killer cell activity, etc., etc. Forget about that. Antioxidants are extremely important for increasing your immunity. So what is important at this stage in COVID-19? The balanced diet will have some extra of all these antioxidants. And dietitians are having an important role to say what type of food they should consume. No reference need to be made. Many of us know that what type of food we can consume, like for vitamin E, vegetable oils, like beta carotene, whether it is a carrot or dark green leafy vegetable, even ripe papaya. Nowadays, very much available. I consume every day. And then for vitamin C, lemons, limes, etc. So this is the responsibility of the dietitian to increase these antioxidants in their so-called balanced diet. Vitamin D, I have seen that in many discussions, people are saying about all the things and not clearly mentioning the importance of vitamin D, which we seldom get from the food. Unless the food is fortified with vitamin D, and in our country, vitamin D fortified food is limited, some oils and some milk. So basically, little amount you can get from some cheese or maybe some egg, etc., but that is not sufficient. and a person should be exposed to sun ideally from 11 to 3, at least for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and get their vitamin D synthesized in the body. I would suggest a vulnerable population should test their vitamin D, consult with the physician if needed, vitamin D supplementation to be taken. Dietitians cannot prescribe a diet which will provide vitamin D unless the food is fortified. And lastly, zinc. Zinc is also important, working absolutely in the molecular level, not going into the detail of that. So what I want to say that the concept of nutrition has transformed from earlier adequate nutrition to now the optimum nutrition. In adequate nutrition, we say that unless this nutrient is adequate, this deficiency, this disease will occur, scurvy will occur, beriberi will occur. But optimum nutrition is something special. It is not only prevent that disease, but gives some extra benefits. And during this pandemic, certain nutrient has become extremely important, like antioxidants, like vitamin D, like zinc, certain food which can provide you serotonin, melatonin, or help in the synthesis of these substances. There is a need to restrict consumption of extra carbohydrate, all these things. And dietitians are having a very important role, responsible role in this situation, and also maybe in the post-COVID state.
Thank
Fatima?
you, sir. Sir, if you have some more time in hand, so can you address 2-3 questions?
Yeah, I'm having time. Whether you are having time or not, I do not know.
No, sir. So like we have a couple of questions over here. So one is again from one of our faculty members, Dr. Milan Banek. So he wants to know, like, can we overcome hormone-related problem in our body, which mostly arises in case of aged people, by shifting our food habit without much focus on the so-called medicines?
Okay. What kind of hormone first I have to know, because there can be different types of hormones, and if that synthesis of that particular hormone is responsible for any particular nutrient, so consumption of that nutrient might help in the synthesis of that particular hormone. But the thing is that what I understand in the geriatric population, the biochemical pathways are not maybe working properly. So the hormones, in spite of having the precursors, may not be synthesized. To be very honest, I am not having an in-depth knowledge in this regard, but this is my perception about the thing, that maybe certain nutrients help in the synthesis of hormone if there is a deficiency of that nutrient, but it depends on the pathway, whether it is properly working or not. Fatima?
Thank you, sir. So then the next question is from Shrijita Basak. So she's asking, what is the scope of after learning DIP diet?
DIP diet is Diploma in Dietetics, which is a postgraduate diploma. And in Kolkata, as I know, only 2 institutes are running this course. One is All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health, and the other one is JD Birla. So earlier, this was the most acceptable course for recruiting a dietitian. But nowadays, what is happening in most of the places, they look for MSc. So if a student do a BSc, whether it is in food and nutrition or in a general stream, any person having a chemistry or physiology in the BSc level, even in the past course, qualify in the entrance examination, can study deep diet in All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health. So she or he is not having in-depth knowledge, not even in-depth, no knowledge of practically food and nutrition at the BSc level. So only have that knowledge in the deep diet course, and after that can work as a dietitian. But many of the hospitals may not take you because they will have applicants who are having BSc and MSc. Some may be having BSc, MSc, as well as deep diet, and it is difficult to compete. So theoretically, you can work as a dietitian after completing deep diet, but in the practical situation, it is difficult to get a job unless you do a MSc. Fatima?
Yes, sir. So then, like there are two related questions. I'm clubbing them together. One is from Arpita Nandi and the other is from Vaishali. They're asking if I do BSc in food and nutrition, and then can I choose food technology subject for MSc? Please explain the food technology option.
In West Bengal, in the Jadavpur University, they are having a food technology. It is a BTech course, and for that one have to pass BSc in chemistry. Chemistry honors BSc can only apply for the BTech course. But after doing a BSc in food and nutrition, one can opt for a course on food processing. Like already I have mentioned, that food processing and nutrition science run by IAEST, and can develop certain expertise in the food processing, if not food technology. But for food technology, this is basically a technology course. Naturally, they recruit either after higher secondary or after BSc, and if it is a BSc, as far as my knowledge goes, in West Bengal at least, the minimum eligibility is chemistry honors in BSc. Fatima?
Thank you, sir. Sir, and one last question. Sir, in our university syllabus, we have actually incorporated the most contemporary fields of nutrition like nutraceuticals, nutrigenomics, and sports nutrition, about which you gave us a brief idea during the webinar. So can you just give another insight to the participants about these contemporary fields and the prospects in future days?
Okay, again a difficult question, and as Professor Chattopadhyay is listening, it is very difficult to say something on nutrigenomics. But anyway, I'm trying to say in a very simple word what is the scope of a nutraceutical or nutrigenomics. Having 5-7 minutes time?
Yes, sir.
Fatima?
Sure. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. This start with nutraceutical. A nutraceutical, what they call a portmanteau, difficult to understand what it is. Simply, nutraceutical has emerged from two different terms. One is nutrition and the other one is pharmaceutical, which was coined in 1989. And according to him, the person who did it, De Felice, I'm quoting his statement. Nutraceuticals are food or part of a food that provides medical or health benefits, including the prevention and or treatment of a disease. that he did. And you know that there is a FSSAI, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. They are actually the managing body, the governing body for all food related regulations. And they are actually have included nutraceuticals along with 7 others defined kinds of food products, whether it is a food with added probiotics, a food added prebiotics, and other things. They have defined nutraceuticals like this. Nutraceuticals are naturally occurring ingredients that are extracted, isolated, and purified from food or non-food sources, and upon consumption in measured amounts provide a physiological benefit and help maintain good health. This is exactly what they said. So basically, nutraceuticals are ingredients which are extracted from food. It's not really synthesized in the laboratory, nutraceuticals. But in the nutraceutical, one can add sometimes certain vitamins or maybe minerals, etc., but that is always governed by FSSAI. Now, nutraceuticals are having immense scope in the sense this is a food processing and also the application. So our nutritionist, as you said that it is included in the syllabus, whether working in the nutraceutical industry or not, they must know about nutraceuticals because nutraceuticals are being marketed. So people are consuming. So what benefits they can have from the nutraceuticals, what harmful effects a person may have by consuming unnecessary nutraceuticals, a person having a nutrition or dietetics background should know. And if anybody works in that kind of a industry, so he will have a direct involvement in the processing and development of different kinds of nutraceuticals. This is what I can speak on nutraceutical and briefly. And regarding the nutrigenomics, emerging area of nutrition and molecular biology, and what can be said about nutrigenomics, that basically it encompasses essentially 2 things: nutrigenetics, nutrigenomics. And if I define nutrigenetics, so it's a study of how individuals' genetic makeup determines nutrient requirement. Basically, nutrigenomics take 3 components: genome, nutrition, and health. So what nutrigenetics is basically interested, that how the gene determine the requirement of a nutrient of an individual, how the food can be digested and absorbed, that is the metabolism, and susceptibility to various diseases, particularly maybe chronic diseases. So basically this is a personalized concept that nowadays what we are doing, that if an adult person, so how much calcium is required? ICMR said 600 milligram per day, irrespective of age, sex, race, physiological status. Of course, if not having any problem related to calcium, we recommend, dietitians recommend 600 milligram of calcium. Nutrigenetics will help to know whether actually the person requires 600 or 400 or 800 or what. So, personalized nutrition, nutrigenetics. Though nutrigenomics used as an umbrella term, and nutrigenetics, nutritional epigenetics, all included, encompassed under this umbrella term, but nutrigenomics basically defined as a study on the influence of nutrients and other bioactive food components on gene expression. So there are two things. One, gene determines the nutrient requirement. Gene determines how the food will be digested, absorbed. Gene determines whether the person is susceptible to disease or not. And the other one, if any nutrient or bioactive food components are consumed by a person, how the gene will be expressed. So what is the basic objective of this? To determine personalized diet for providing optimum nutrition and prevention from diet-related diseases. One day will come, already is coming. There are companies in India and in many parts of the world, in the US, in Spain, Madrid, in Dubai, they are helping dietitians to develop their diet based on the genetic makeup in some areas. Basically, nowadays, most of the works on these nutrigenomics are concentrated on managing the obesity. Even in India, there is I'm not naming any, but there is a company in Pune. If anybody contact with them, so they can help into. Fatima, tell her to tell Preeti to mute.
Yeah. Please mute the microphone.
Yes, yeah, fine. She is muted. So from that, a dietitian can develop a diet. So what I like to conclude in this area, that not necessarily after studying nutrition and dietetics, a person will become molecular biologist, but they will understand how these nutrigenomics and nutrigenetics help them to develop a diet, a prescribed diet for an individual. One day will come when a person will have their genetic makeup. And basically what happens, you understand that in a gene, if there is a slight change, I'm avoiding the technical term, if there is a slight change, and that ultimately responsible for a change in the nutritional requirement or whatever it may be. So if we know that what is there in the gene, a personalized diet is possible to prescribe. So what you said that it is there in the syllabus, nutraceutical and nutrigenomics is absolutely relevant at a present era, of modern nutrition. All students of nutrition should have an idea of what is nutraceuticals, what are their benefits, what are their harmful effects. Similarly, they should know what is nutrigenetics, what is nutrogenomics, and how these science can be applied in developing a diet, prescribing a diet for an individual. So generalized diet ultimately will be transformed into personalized diet, and only nutrogenomics can help in that respect. Fatima?
Thank you very much, sir, for the enlightening talk. I'm sure the students have gained a lot from today's webinar. But for those students who could not join us live, this video will be uploaded on the Facebook page of our department, and they can mail the questions either to Professor Somsubra Thakur Chaudhary or to me on the email address which is provided in the program schedule. I would really request now Professor Rajat Pal to deliver the vote of thanks. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. It is my immense pleasure to thank our eminent speaker today, Professor Devnath Chaudhary. I'm very much thankful to him, and I hope that every student who is listening to today's webinar have gather quite bit knowledge from his lecture. I'm very much thankful to you, sir, for giving us the time. I'm
Thank you.
thankful to our honorable. I am thankful to our honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, for encouraging us to organize such a wonderful webinar. Thank you, sir, for supporting us and for being us all the time. His hands of blessings are always with us. So I'm very much thankful to Professor Chattopadhyay also. I'm very much thankful to Professor Kalkatawala and Professor Thakur Chaudhary for organizing a nice webinar. And Professor Kalkatawala, you have moderated the whole session so beautiful and so nicely. I'm very much thankful to you also. I'm grateful to Professor Milan Monik and Professor Atrey Ghosh for supporting us for throughout this organization and every part of this webinar. And lastly, I convey my thanks and gratitude to all the participants who are joining live in this session and who are actually
Very much all the participants for cooperating with us and making the webinar a success. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody, sir.
yeah. So
Thank you, Vibhuda.
Thank you. It's really a nice lecture. Yeah. Okay. Good night to everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
Yeah,
night, sir.
Good night.
good night.